How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather SpongeBob 1000, and today we're going to forecast the risk that you should experience a tornado in each area of the United States and see if you should experience more tornadoes than average this year or less tornadoes than average this year. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the Enzo outlook over the next several months, and you're probably thinking, what does the Enzo pattern have to do with the amount of tornadoes you experience in a given year? Well, if we were to first take a look at the forecast for the next couple months, you see that we're expected to experience a La Nina, and that could make a big difference when it comes to hurricane season, because typically during a La Nina we see more instability in the United States, and of course, as a result, we see more convection, we see stronger updrafts, and as a result, there's a higher tornado risk when we experience a La Nina year, and this is expected to continue till maybe the month of June and maybe extending through the summer. It's still uncertain at this point because you see that the chance of a neutral phase is pretty much as probable as a La Nina occurring, where you do see that in the months of June, August, and even through September and October, the chance of a neutral phase is pretty much right in line with the chance of a La Nina phase. So it's going to be a little bit uncertain to forecast what phase we'll experience during those months. However, I will point out that even if we do experience a neutral phase, for one thing, it's going to take several months before we actually experience neutral type conditions. So for majority of the year, we could still be in a La Nina or experience La Nina type conditions. And also, a neutral phase isn't necessarily that different from a La Nina phase when it comes to conditions. So for the most part, I would forecast La Nina type conditions for most of the year for the United States, which could make a big impact when it comes to severe weather. Because if I were to show you guys how the La Nina influences severe weather in the United States, you see that hailstorms and tornadoes for majority of the United States are far more likely, especially right around the Mississippi River Valley, right around just west of the Memphis area. You do see that tornadoes are far more frequent during a La Nina, and it's even more so for hailstorms. And my speculation is that since the La Nina typically brings a more noticeable jet stream dip, we typically see a lot more instability throughout the Midwest and the Southeast that induces more severe weather threats, which leads to more tornadoes as a result. And this extends to the East Coast as well, where we do see more tornadoes more frequently than average, and hailstorms as well along the East Coast. And another thing too is that typically during La Nina, the hurricane season is a little bit more active, and of course, hurricanes are definitely capable of producing multiple tornadoes at once. So that definitely adds on to the total for the year in the United States if we see more hurricanes than average. While the Southeast typically receives maybe around an average amount of tornadoes for most of the year, despite a La Nina, we typically see more hurricanes than average, so that could lead to more tornadoes just east of the Mississippi River Valley, despite a La Nina influence not bringing much difference when it comes to tornadoes, at least in the extreme southern portions of the Southeast, including the Gulf Coast states and Florida. So that's only something to keep in mind. Hailstorms are also more frequent. So based on the fact that we're going to experience a La Nina for most of 2022, or at least La Nina type conditions for most of 2022, I'd expect more tornadoes than average for a lot of the United States, more specifically in the areas right around Arkansas and further eastward as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But there are other factors we need to take a look at before we can jump to that conclusion. And taking a look at what typically happens during a La Nina pattern, you see that there's a pronounced jet stream dip. We see more moist than average conditions right around the Ohio River Valley, close to the Southeast, and that leads to more thunderstorm activity and as a result tornadoes than average in the Southeast. So that's something to be aware of when it comes to La Nina type conditions for 2022. Now, taking a look at the drought monitor for 2022, you're gonna see that It's typically a lot drier than average for the it's right now it's drier than average for most of the United States, and this could make a big difference when it comes to the tornado season, because if it's drier than average, of course there's going to be far less thunderstorms than average for a lot of the West Coast, and as a result less tornadoes than average. So as a result of this drought going on, there's definitely a higher a chance that there's going to be less tornadoes than average anywhere west of the Mississippi River Valley at this time. And this includes Texas and a lot of the Midwest as well, the area most synonymous with tornado activity, experiencing drier than average conditions. So there is a higher possibility that the Midwest would experience less tornadoes than average as a result of this drought going on. So that's something you need to keep in mind right around the Midwest. And however, anywhere that's, I'd say, east of the Missouri River Valley, you see that the drought isn't really affecting you guys much. We do see areas where it is abnormally dry right now, but it isn't to the extent as the West Coast, where it's much drier than average, where there's a well-defined ridge that will be difficult to maneuver right along the West Coast, unlike the East Coast, where it's not that much drier than average to lead to a prolonged period of drought conditions. So I'd say the East Coast would be more likely for tornadoes if this drought doesn't necessarily spread to the East Coast. So that's something to keep in mind, and less tornadoes than average anywhere west of the Missouri River Valley. So another thing we need to take a look at is the spring forecast for 2022, because spring is the most frequent part of the year, I'm pretty sure, where we do experience the most tornadoes. And as of right now, you see that my forecast, pretty much anywhere that's west of Mississippi, is expecting a drier than average year. Like I said, as a result of the current drought that's going on, it's going to be very difficult to get that way, because typically during a drought there isn't a lot of moisture in the soil, so that doesn't lead to a lot of water vapor in the atmosphere, and that typically just leads to a continuous cycle where drought conditions will be very difficult to get away from in right around the southeast. But you see, it's going to be more moist than average right along the Ohio River Valley, and more mild than average along the East Coast. And the sea surface temperatures are also warmer than average, so that could lead to a little bit more convection to lead to more thunderstorm activity along the East Coast as well. So pretty much all signs are pointing towards the East Coast to receive more tornadoes than average this year, while anywhere that's west of the Mississippi River Valley will experience less tornadoes than average this year. And taking a look at the summer forecast, you see it's fairly similar to the spring forecast, still warmer and more moist than average conditions right around southeast. And like I said in my previous videos, a more active than usual hurricane season is expected as well, so that could definitely inflate the tornado total throughout the East Coast, because of course hurricanes are more than capable of producing multiple tornadoes. And if we do see multiple hurricane and tropical storm landfalls right along the East Coast, that could definitely lead to more tornadoes than average along the East Coast as well. And you see that the summer, I still do expect the much warmer and drier than average conditions to continue, which will lead to less tornadoes than average for throughout the Midwest. So that's something to keep in mind. And here's my 2022 tornado outlook. Pretty much like I've been saying, anywhere that's pretty much east of the Mississippi River Valley, I expect more tornadoes than average, with an emphasis right around Memphis, Arkansas, right around Missouri as well. This is an area where I think you should experience much more tornadoes than average. Outside of that, I still do expect more tornadoes than average. In the areas where you don't typically receive tornadoes, this could be the year where you do receive maybe a little bit more tornadoes than average, but not by a long shot, because of course it's still relatively rare for tornadoes to happen, let's say, this far up north. And I put the hurricane icons in this map as well, because like I said, the hurricanes could lead to more tornadoes along the southeast as a result of more active than usual hurricane season. So that's something to keep in mind. And then slightly more tornadoes for northward, as we typically don't see much tornadoes that far up northward in any given year. So I don't expect the tornado total to pretty much blow every other year out of the water that far up northward, but there's still a slightly higher risk of tornadoes in New England. And then I'm expecting less tornadoes than average right around the tornado alley right around the Midwest as a result of drier than average conditions, which should definitely be good news for a lot of people. So, but keep in mind, whether there's going to be less tornadoes than average, more tornadoes than average, or around an average amount of tornadoes, just remember that all it takes is just one tornado to completely change the lives of thousands of people. So don't underestimate tornado warning or any sort of tornadoes just because it might be less active than this tornado season would be less active than usual. So keep that in mind throughout the United States. But yeah, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.